the aircraft has come down and crashed heavily into the ground.
Tonight, tragedy hits home.
A Montana man among the victims of a deadly plane crash in Australia.
Plus, initial results are in from an autopsy on the missing Hardin teen whose body was found earlier this week.
And if you're enjoying this mild weather, we've got some good news in the forecast.
Powered by the Montana Television Network. This is the 10 o'clock news on KRTV, Montana's news leader.
Devastating wildfires half a world away hit close to home tonight.
3 United States firefighters have died after their plane went down in Australia while battling the country's wildfires.
Among the victims, a man from Great Falls, a member of the 120th Airlift Wing of the Montana Air National Guard.
Captain Ian H. Macbeth was on board the Colson Aviation C-130 Hercules tanker that crashed today. In a release, Colson Aviation says the 44-year-old was a highly qualified and respected C-130 pilot with many years of experience fighting fires. Macbeth spent his career flying C-130s and was an instructor and evaluator pilot. He earned his initial attack qualification for Colson in 2018. Macbeth served with the Wyoming Air National Guard and was a member of the Montana Air National Guard.
Macbeth, one of 3 victims on board that C-130. The other victims, First Officer Paul Clyde Hudson of Arizona and Flight Engineer Rick A. DeMorgan Jr. of Florida.
The Montana Air National Guard is responding tonight to the news. 120th Airlift Wing Commander Colonel Buell Dixon says they lost a valued airman and friend.
Reflecting on Macbeth, he says, quote, Ian was instrumental in the flying success of the 120th Airlift Wing and will be dearly missed. Our thoughts and prayers go out to his family as they navigate this painful and tragic situation. It's never an easy thing to manage, and the loss of a brother in arms affects all of us, end quote. Colonel Dixon goes on to let airmen know they're not alone as they process their grief and to lean on one another as they navigate the loss.
British Columbia-based Colson Aviation had been contracted to help fight the fires in Australia. In the statement, the company thanked people for their condolences and support, saying, quote, the aviation industry and emergency service sector is a small community both in Australia and around the world. This will be deeply felt by all. We honor the amazing crews who do incredible things in dangerous circumstances, supported by world-class operations, end quote.
New South Wales's Rural Fire Commissioner Shane Fitzsimmons says contact was lost with the 3 men while they were in the air.
The tragedy brings the death toll from the blazes to at least 31 since September. And the fires have also destroyed more than 2,600 homes and razed more than 25 million acres, an area bigger than the state of Indiana.
CBS's Jamie Yukas has more tonight.
Nearly 80 fires continue to burn across Australia, many in remote areas. But tonight, 4 remaining air tankers are grounded. That action taken after an aircraft like this one, a C-130 Hercules, crashed while on a mission to drop fire retardant over an area under threat. The plane, operated by 3 American crew members, all in their 40s, took off from a base just outside Sydney, reportedly following a spotter plane when it lost contact.
We will be forever indebted to the enormous contribution and indeed the ultimate sacrifice that's been paid.
The crash occurred as fire conditions worsened, with 90-degree heat and 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts.
We can't thank enough people who continue, notwithstanding these conditions, to put their own safety at risk to protect the lives and property of others.
When American firefighters first arrived, they were greeted with cheers. More than 200 have been deployed to Australia. We spoke with Jason Loomis from Oregon last week. He continues to fight the fires with other U.S. ground crews.
We weren't knowing for sure what we were getting into. We just knew that it was chaotic and it was bigger and greater than anything we had ever seen.
Sources tell me that investigators have reached the crash site. The tail section remains intact, but the fuselage was destroyed. Families of the Americans killed will arrive in Australia on Friday. Jamie Yukas, CBS News, Los Angeles.
Preliminary autopsy reports indicate a Hardin teen missing for nearly 3 weeks died of hypothermia. Bighorn County Undersheriff Eric Winburn released the findings on Selena Not Afraid today. County Attorney Jay Harris said in a news release that the preliminary results did not indicate physical injuries consistent with assault or physical abuse. Rather, the evidence is consistent with death by exposure to the elements, but an official cause of death will be made pending the full toxicology report. Under Sheriff Winbird said there were no signs of the body being moved to the spot where it was found. Harris's office is investigating Not Afraid's death as a possible criminal matter. A final report will not be ready until toxicology reports are finished, which could take another several weeks. Searchers found Not Afraid's body on Monday.
The U.S. Senate trial of President Trump on impeachment charges entered its third day today, and before the proceedings began, MTN's chief political reporter Mike Dennison spoke with each of Montana's senators for their take on what has happened so far and what they're expecting in the days to come.
Senator Steve Daines voted this week with fellow Republicans to reject initial Democratic requests to call witnesses or add new documents at the Senate trial. He told MTN News the Senate will vote later whether to consider adding witnesses or documents, but that it's not the Senate's job to bolster the House Democrats' case.
The problem we have is the Democrats have an incomplete case and didn't get all the work done in the House. The reason for that is they were trying to rush this through to affect the outcome of the next election. That's what this is all about.
Daines says if Democrats wanted certain witnesses, they could have waited for courts to rule whether those witnesses could testify. But he did acknowledge that could have taken months or longer to resolve. Democratic Senator John Tester said he still hopes that witnesses or pertinent documents will be added later in the trial.
Politics aside, this really has nothing to do with Democrats or Republicans. This has to do with some pretty serious charges that have been laid out over the last 20 hours that we need information on. And if the president truly is innocent, he shouldn't be afraid of these witnesses.
Daines, however, said the impeachment charges are an entirely partisan affair. When asked if he wants more information about the charges that the president acted improperly on aid to Ukraine or didn't cooperate with the inquiry, Daines responded this way.
But this is the first set of impeachment articles ever presented in terms of impeachment of a president of the United States where there is no alleged crime committed.
The Constitution says a president can be removed for treason, bribery, or high crimes and misdemeanors, but doesn't further define the terms. Daines also said voters, not Congress, should decide whether to remove Trump from office.
The Democrats are asking us to overturn the election of 2016 and to permanently remove President Trump's name from the ballot in 2020.
Tester said it's the job of the Senate to decide the impeachment charges.
I think it's really important when the defense comes up in the next few days, and I look forward to this, that they engage on what the prosecution has said on the president's actions.
It takes 67 votes to convict the president in a Senate where Democrats control only 47 seats. I think we know what the final outcome will be. The only question may be, how will that result play with the public? Reporting from Helena, Mike Dennison, MTN News.
Well, our stretch of mild weather continues. Our Storm Tracker weather team has been tracking another day of comfortable and above average temperatures.
So Brandon, can we count on this nicer weather to continue?
We sure can. It's going to continue not only in the short term, but actually in the long term. We're going to be dealing with these warmer temperatures for quite some time. So some good news here. We're looking at Great Falls over the next 5 days. 50s tomorrow, close to that on Saturday. And then we stay in the mid 40s for Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. So the next 5 days at the very least looking fairly warm. And then if we jump into the 6 to 10 day outlook, the entire state of Montana projected to be above average. And actually not just the entire state of Montana, almost all of the lower 48 states looking to be warmer than average. So some good news there. Looking at what we saw today across the country, didn't have that many cool spots. 25 in Bismarck, that's about the coolest number on the board. And that's really not all that cold for this time of year. You can see Great Falls at 49 degrees. We'll zoom in onto Montana, though. Had a couple of cooler spots, only 30 degrees for the high in Glasgow. They'll be a little bit warmer up in that area tomorrow, and we are looking at pretty nice weather even as we head into the weekend. Just a couple showers to talk about, and we'll have more on that coming up later.
We're at a different place today because we're trying to mend all of our people together.
Up next, remembering the past to move to a better future.
We look back on the Bear River Massacre next.
Powered by the Montana Television Network. The 10 o'clock news continues on KRTV, Montana's news leader.
Every year on January 23rd, the miracle survivors of the Bear River Massacre remember the tragedy that cost hundreds of people their lives.
But today, the miracle survivors of the Bear River Massacre are turning tragedy into victory.
MTN's Lindsie Hiatt tells us how.
A century and a half ago, this scene of community and learning was the site of tragedy and hurting. Beyond the hills and down by the river, hundreds of natives were massacred. Now the Blackfeet tribe is shedding light on a day of darkness.
Today is a victorious day.
Blackfeet member Theda Newbreast says that this day of historical tragedy is one that has the power to unite a democracy.
We're at a different place today because we're trying to mend all of our people together. We're trying to have some forgiveness and be a true democracy.
As the first Americans, the natives are reaching out to their fellow countrymen.
It's all about forgiveness, and it's all about us coming together as all Americans. And we're the first Americans, and so we're putting our hand halfway across the table to everyone.
To right the wrongs of the past.
That was the history, and if there was some wrongs in the history, let's correct it today.
By starting anew.
Forgiveness happens when we start new. It's total renewal, it's total reclaiming, it's almost like a rebirth.
And learning from past mistakes.
We learn the history and then we behave more maturely.
So that future generations don't follow in the same footsteps.
There's hundreds of students here that are from the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th grade. We want them to see that we're correcting history today.
And doing right by their brothers and sisters of the red, white, and blue.
Because we're all Americans, and we have to figure out how to be better to each other. And
In Toole County, Lindsie, Hiatt, MTN News.
Well, we're still tracking some nice warm weather. It's just a couple areas of fog we have to keep an eye on tonight. We'll break those down after the break.
Now, here's your Storm Tracker weather forecast with meteorologist Brandon Michaels.
Well, after a mild day today, we're still tracking some mild weather tonight. Also tracking, though, a few areas of fog. Not in Great Falls. Our visibility 10 miles. We don't have anything near fog right now. It's 42. It's actually very nice. It's a little too windy for fog anyway. Still tracking that 21-mile-per-hour wind out of the southwest, which is actually helping keep us pretty mild here this evening. And actually, the fog is pretty concentrated to some of the cooler spots across the area. It's 45 right now in Fort Benton, 42 in Great Falls. You do see some spots in the 20s, though. Glasgow, Wolf Point, Scobie, 20-degree temperatures there, and where we see the cooler temperatures is where we see the reduced visibilities, and there's a pretty sharp cutoff right now. Glasgow not dealing with too much in the way of fog, at least as of yet, but both Scobie and Wolf Point are seeing some foggier conditions there. Actually, a dense fog advisory in effect for parts of Daniels County and Roosevelt County, and in general, that's where we expect the fog to be through the night tonight. We'll see it expand a little bit off to the west, but in general, the worst of that fog is going to remain east of Havre. Let's look at overnight lows tonight. Many spots very mild, only 38 in Fort Benton, 34 in Geyser, down to about 36 tonight in Great Falls, and then where we've got those foggier conditions, we do expect a cooler night tonight. So with temperatures that cool and some of that fog that we've been talking about, we could actually see some freezing fog too, so that's something to be aware of if you live in those areas. Through the day tomorrow, another nice day, at least temperature-wise. We'll take a look at those right now. 42 right about 10 a.m., 47 by noon, near 50 degrees already by 2. We do see the temperature start to fall a little bit. We've got a little bit cooler air that's going to start to push through the day tomorrow, but it's really not going to be anything all that significant. Let's run through high temperatures. We're expecting plenty spots. Going to be in the 50s. Nice day. 50 in Lewistown, 51 in Geyser, 54 in Fort Benton, Great Falls and Choteau getting into the 50s as well. And as has been the case for the last couple of days, in general, a little bit cooler off to the northeast. 37 for Malta and Glasgow. Havre, though, warming up pretty nice. 47, getting pretty close to that 50-degree mark in Havre as well. So some nicer temperatures along the high line. As far as winds are concerned, fairly calm for most of us. A couple of breezier spots. We could see some 20, I think even probably 25-mile-per-hour wind gusts tomorrow, at least through the afternoon in Great Falls. And in general, it is going to be a little bit breezier along the Rocky Mountain front, too, as it usually is when we see these stronger winds. We're also tracking a little bit of moisture that's going to be moving our way. Just a little cloud cover tonight, nothing going on, but if you look well off to the west there, you do see quite a bit of rain actually falling around Spokane right now, and that's going to head our way as we head through the night tonight. Just a little bit of light snow along the divide, maybe even toward the Little Belts. Not a whole lot going on by tomorrow morning. As we head into the afternoon hours, though, we're going to start to see that moisture move a little closer to us, and then we actually even get a couple of spotty showers at lower elevations by the time we get to the afternoon. So a few raindrops can't be ruled out even in Great Falls. 51 degrees the high tomorrow, 49. A lot of sunshine for our Saturday. Beautiful way to kick off the weekend. Could see a couple more showers into the day on Sunday, but then back to sunshine by Monday as we head into next week. Just a tiny bit cooler and a little tiny chance of showers on Wednesday as well. Tom?
Thanks, Brandon. For the second straight night, we got a doubleheader on the High Line. MSU Northern hosting the University of Providence. Highlights from both the boys and the women's game coming your way next in sports.
For sports with Tom Wylie.
Welcome back. It's Crosstown Week, and Helena first on deck. Colossal matchup between the girls teams. Helena High, your three-time defending AA champs, taking on undefeated Helena Capital. Go to the first quarter. Michaela Cloker gets the pass and just firing away from the wing. Opens the scoring in the first quarter. Helena up by 3. But points at a premium in this one. It took Capital 6 minutes to get on the board. How about Paige Barch underneath? Getting the go. We are in the second half now after a 13-9 lead. That's Michaela O'Malley bringing the Bruins back into this one. Let's go to overtime. We went there tied at 31. Cloker still firing away from the wing. Good cause. Gives the Bengals the lead. Couple minutes to go, but the Bruins refuse to go down in their house. Danny to Page to get the lead right back, and they hang on to win it. Bruins knock off the Bengals for the first time in 3 years, 39-34. Now let's go to the High Line. Second night of a back-to-back for MSU Northern. Skylights still missing some of their stars, Tiara Gillum and Mackenzie Gunter, hosting Providence. There we go. Getting excited before this game up in the Armory Gymnasium. Skylights trying to keep it going after beating Carroll last night. Haley Nicholson, multi-product, pump fake, finish inside. Providence would find an answer, though. Jenna Randich from the wing, and the only senior on the Argos puts her team up by 5. Later on, Northern sticking with the inside game. Kenya Lorton posts up, scores through the contact, does the junior college transfer, but then Providence goes on a tear. Kirsten Pimperton misses the 3. Parker Esri to clean up inside. Providence up 8. Esri with 18 points, 18 rebounds tonight. Now some defense. Kennedy Cartwright with the takeaway. Dishes to Emily Maldonado. And up ahead to Randich with an easy 2. And Providence builds a 19-point lead. They win big, 53-41 is your final. The men's game up next. Northern finally ended its 4-game losing streak last night, topping number 9 Carroll College, but number 8 Providence in town here. And the Argos start us off. Joel Tabeezy going to work inside, gets the friendly bounce, and the bucket lights would find an answer. David Harris sends his defender flying with a nice pump fake. That jumper is on the money. Next up, Harris looks for a cutting. Maceo McCadney finishes off the glass. We're all tied up in the first half. Later on, Argos go to Jake Wetzel, and he can fill it up from deep. That's good. He had 4 threes in the first half alone. Zacchaeus Darko Kelly next. He'll use the step back in the corner. He had 20 to lead the Argos. Finally, Darko Kelly just doing what he does best. Big steal this time. You know what's next. Big time jam. Throws it down with the right hand. Northern made things interesting, but Providence wins 66-61. Well, earlier this week, the Montana High School Association accepted a proposal to become the 21st state to sanction girls wrestling at the high school level. And while the move will open up a door for a lot of new athletes to try the sport, it wouldn't have been possible without a handful of pioneers and trailblazers who didn't back down from the challenge of wrestling boys, including a handful of standouts in central Montana.
There was a time not long ago when seeing a girl on the wrestling mats would have caused spectators to double take.
Definitely, and I kind of just push it off the shoulder and keep doing what I'm doing.
And seeing a girl win a match in a sport typically dominated by boys was almost unheard of.
I like it. I like going out there and beating boys and proving them that I can.
Cascade's Lily Grismer is definitely not the first female to wrestle with boys in Montana, but she might be one of the best.
I really like adrenaline, and when you're out there, you don't really think about anything else. You just think about what you're going to do next, what your opponent's going to do next.
She's got some disadvantages. You know, she's not as strong as a lot of these kids. Technically, she's probably more sound than, she's the most sound in our room for sure, but she's probably more sound than a lot of kids in the state.
This summer, against female competition, Grismer finished 5th in her weight class at the Cadet and Junior National Championships in Fargo. She earned All-American status and is currently ranked 14th in the nation among high school girls.
It's an honor to be ranked and have the potential to go out and place even higher than 5th next year at Nationals, and I can't wait.
Next year, she'll compete full-time against other girls, but in 2020, she has her sights set on making history. Only 3